Hi, True Avatars, and welcome to your weekly queer video game podcast. This is episode 38, and I am your host, Zoe Wild. This week is yet another jam-packed episode. We're going to be talking all about the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, the console of the games, and even the launch party of sorts. I was invited but didn't get to go in. I also want to cover the queer games from the Women-Led Games Showcase as part of Summer Games Fest last weekend. And this week, the news did not stop. We have a good handful of juicy controversies to sink our teeth into. That's right, Runescape has become queerphobic, Dragon Age the Veilguard has some hot goss. Plus, we have news on The Last of Us Season 3, PlayStation 6, and even a Splatoon spin-off. And who else to talk about such a spin-off but the girl who predicted it, Amy-Lynn. Amy-Lynn is a transgender lesbian whose pronouns are she, her. Hi, Amy-Lynn. How do you feel about being, who's the predictor god of, like, Greek mythology? I don't even know.
Well, I think something Oracle of Delphi, that sounds right.
Right.
Not really a god, but the only thing I got wrong was that it didn't involve a direct of any kind.
Yeah, that's weird. I thought for sure once they had that trailer, there'd be like a week of like Twitter drops and Nintendo Today news were like, oh, here's the release date for Metroid Prime 4. We're not giving you any more news than that. But that didn't happen. So I'm hopeful there's still a direct maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird as far as that's concerned. Cause usually when something like that happens, you're right. Like, it's like a sudden deluge of like, oh yeah, here's a bunch of trailers. I think one of the Mario parties or Paper Marios was announced that way. So like for something as big as Splatoon, even if it is a spin-off, it was a little bit weird, but you know, is Nintendo doing Nintendo?
Yeah, I'm like very confused, but at the same time hopeful that like, okay, they didn't tell us much about the game. They showed us like a little bit of footage in game that told us nothing. We don't even know if it's single player for sure. And we'll talk about this later, but the reason I think there's going to be a direct is because they barely showed us anything. And then, so like they can like, maybe they're whetting our appetite for a direct at the end of the month, but they want to get, because it's coming out soon, it's already been rated, they're trying to market it now, and then they can give us the release date in like 2 or 3 weeks in a direct with like all the other release dates for the fall, because there's like a lot we don't know.
Well, that would be fun.
All right. We're going to jump into all our stuff for this week, including we're just going to like jump right back into the Splatoon Raiders discussion shortly after this. But I do have some quick things to ask of you, True Avatars. If you like this podcast, please leave a comment or review on your preferred podcast platform. I know Spotify has ratings and comments and Apple has reviews. True Avatars hasn't been reviewed at all on Apple yet. And I know like 40% of all my True Avatars are listening on there. I see you. Reviews help grow the podcast, and a growing podcast means a happy podcast host, me, who is forever happy and fulfilled that you enjoy listening to her ramblings, which creates an infinite feedback loop of more podcast episodes and more growth and more happiness because more reviews are coming in. So please go leave a review. Also, please follow True Avatars, a queer video game podcast on social media. There are accounts on Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at True Avatars. And you can also find the podcast on the official website, trueavatarspodcast.com, all one word. And remember, this is a weekly queer video game podcast, so check in every week. I aim to bring you news, interviews, and updated discussions that are relevant to queer gamers. Plus, we have an interview next week, by the way. So you have a safe space to check in on the world of gaming from a 2S LGBTQIA+ lens. Getting better at saying that slowly. All right, let's jump into the news. All right, so Splatoon Raiders. And Amy-Lynn, since you predicted it, do you want to give us the rundown on the Splatoon Raiders, Splatoon like 5-minute random not direct thing?
As you said, we got sort of precious little information. We did get a brief little cutscene with the Splatoon 3 idols landing on some sort of military aircraft on a mysterious, presumably island, because remember that a lot of these ocean animals cannot swim. So they're stuck to the land, and there is some sort of cool robot companion. And that is about it, aside from the title of Splatoon Raiders. It is interesting, like the narrator or the announcer explicitly calls it a spin-off, which is really interesting. So it's not, Switch 2 exclusive DLC. It's not Splatoon 4. It is specifically a spin-off. So that's really interesting. It means we're not going to get the usual turf war mode, almost certainly. But it has been confirmed. It's still, you can still turn into a squid or octopus, most likely, swim in ink, and presumably shoot a weapon or splat with a weapon. It it is clear that the Splatoon 3 cast are at least going to play a role, probably significant, but at least sort of an introductory role to bridge Splatoon 3 and the spinoff. But aside from, some visuals of the setting, that's about it as far as Splatoon Raiders goes. They also announced a Switch 2 and a general new version update for the Splatoon 3 game. So we're getting, I think it's Urchin Underpass. So like one of the first maps from Splatoon 1 is coming back for Splatoon 3, as well as some new weapons, and improved frame rate, improved graphics and lighting, all that sort of usual Switch 2 enhancement stuff.
Yeah, I was really just surprised. And to be honest, part of me was hoping that, with the like Twitter drops, I was hoping there'd be more this week. So there was something else to kind of chew on, but I'm also glad there wasn't because it's been so busy. Splatoon Raiders. It looks like they literally just took the Splatoon 3 gameplay and put it somewhere else for the spinoff. It doesn't look that much different in terms of like, not so much gameplay, but just like, it literally just like, when you're seeing this character move around in the world, it like literally just looks like maybe like a survival version of the gameplay from Splatoon 3.
It does seem like it's using the same engine at the very least. And like, I am really curious what sort of gameplay the game will have. Like, I think it is either going to be single player or co-op. As you said, like, I think survival would be an interesting way to go for Splatoon, and it could work easy with the sort of engine and the sort of gameplay just as far as what the character models can do. I think a full-on platformer, you can do that kind of thing for sure, and I'm certain there will be platforming elements. Just the mobility of the character, especially in squid form, lends itself to sort of unique gravity-defying, acrobatics and platforming sequences. But it'll be really interesting to see what form this game takes and what the gameplay loop ends up being like.
And have you tried out on your Nintendo Switch 2? We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but have you gotten to try out the Splatoon 3 enhancements on your Switch 2?
So I have not, and I'm not sure if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I adore Splatoon as a franchise. Splatoon 3 had awful matchmaking, and it didn't really get better as the life of the game went on, unfortunately. So I enjoyed Salmon Run for all it was worth. I adored the single player main campaign, but unless I decide to go into the DLC, I think I'm likely going to be waiting for Splatoon Raiders. I really hope that whatever Nintendo did with Splatoon 2's matchmaking, they can restore for Splatoon 4 whenever it came out, because that was incredibly disappointing. Like, I played Splatoon 2 almost right up until Splatoon 3 came out. But I didn't play Splatoon 3 much longer than I played through the main campaign, and I didn't even go through all the Splatfests this time. It was disappointing especially for someone who adores the world and even the feel of the gameplay so much. Like, there's something really fun about like melting into the ink and the fluidity and like the jumping. I really adore the gameplay of Splatoon. So I do hope that whatever form Splatoon Raiders comes in, a lot of that mobility and feel remains, because I love the game, I love the world, love the gameplay. The matchmaking was completely awful.
I feel like whenever Nintendo releases like the perfect game, like they like perfect almost everything, there's always a monkey's paw element to it where they're like it's perfect gameplay, but the online is terrible, or, there's lots of cases. Like, my brain is really tired right now. I just woke up, but there's lots of cases, I think, where Nintendo is like, here's a really amazing 10 out of 10 game that becomes a 9 out of 10 because of one issue that they could literally easily fix.
Yeah. Like, if ARMS had a story mode, I think we would have had an ARMS 2 by now.
Yeah. I'm honestly surprised how quickly that IP died. like, it even came back in Smash and was, like, a huge hit. But, like, I don't know. I feel like we're going to be talking about ARMS in, like, 10 years the way we talk about F-Zero now.
Except I don't think we're going to get ARMS 99 or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it's going to be one of those games that they port to the eventual, like, Nintendo Switch 5 is like, oh, Nintendo Switch 1 games are here on NSO, but not ARMS.
Well, it's too hard because the motion controls will only be leg-based with the Switch 5.
Oh, of course, yeah. And we're using our toes to press buttons now. I forgot.
The Balance Board 3.
Oh, make a great surf game, though. But speaking of Nintendo, we have more Nintendo news here, and it's a little disappointing, although I think it's good news personally, but the live-action Legend of Zelda movie has been delayed by about a month or so. It was originally supposed to come out March 26, 2027, which I think was a week after Sonic 4. Sonic 4 is still where it is, towards the end of March. I don't remember the exact date, but the Legend of Zelda movie has been moved back to May 7th, 2027. And everyone's like, it's a little sad that this movie has been delayed. But first off, it was a Miyamoto tweet. He was like, this is Miyamoto. And, he did his grim, there's news on this. And here's a very matter-of-fact way of saying this. And he said it was for production reasons, which could be true, to be honest. I'm not denying that it's probably production reasons, but 6 weeks for a movie delay this far out, maybe they have a schedule and maybe they know it's going to take an extra 6 weeks. But I think realistically speaking, the reason is because Avengers Secret Wars got delayed from May 7th, 2027 to December that year. And so, the Prime movie opening weekend, especially where Avengers does so well, is always the first week of May. And so putting your biggest video game adaptation of all time on May 7th, 2027 just makes the most business sense of all time. They'd be silly not to do it. So I think it's because Avengers got delayed and out of that weekend, because now Zelda can move it. If Zelda and Avengers were coming out the same weekend, they would cannibalize each other's box office numbers. The same way Avengers and Endgame and Detective Pikachu, as I talked about last week, did exactly the same thing. I mean, Detective Pikachu stood no chance against the Avengers, but I think in a Pokemon movie on its own weekend, not facing up against movies like, Avengers or any 4-quadrant film would do really well there. So I think this is Nintendo learning from that mistake.
Maybe production reasons. They're being really liberal with the word production, and they just mean the producers said, no, let's move it.
That's also very Nintendo to be like, we can't tell you the reason. Nintendo doesn't understand the film industry. They treat the film industry with directs and stuff, where the film industry is just everything's an open secret in film. If a movie's going into production, there's a 99.99% chance you know about it, whereas a game development happens behind closed doors. So you can hide that until 5 days before it comes out, but you can't really hide a movie production. So Nintendo's about to learn, and especially with animation too, you can kind of hide that and control that. Nintendo's about to learn what set picks are.
Someone will put a camera onto a pigeon, and that pigeon will leak us what Ganondorf looks like in 3 months.
Yeah, and Nintendo's gonna have a shit fit about it too, because they're not gonna understand how movies work.
Well, if they're taking a Sonic Team approach, that means they'll have to, kill that Ganondorf actor and recast him every single time there is a leak. Or at least fire him.
Nintendo Nintendo's about to kill a lot of actors.
Yeah, it'll just be firing. Sorry to be so grim. Nintendo ninjas aren't violent, accurate ninjas.
No, that's the Marvel ninjas, actually. They're the ones who are the snipers, actually, not ninjas. Nintendo's got ninjas, Marvel's got snipers.
Nintendo ninjas will knock you out, and then you'll appear at the start of the dungeon really confused and frustrated.
The whole film production team is suddenly at the start of a dungeon. What happened? We had half the movie in the can, and now it's gone. They've
genetically engineer actual wall masters in order to create an authentic experience.
Oh, that's grim. Yeah, we have to move on though. The Last of Us Season 3 will not star Ellie or Joel, but a third character who we're not going to spoil today. We're going to do a spoiler cast later this summer, I think, on The Last of Us Season 2. But this character who was in season 2 is going to be the focus of the third season. And if you've seen the whole show, you know who this character is. It's not a secret to anyone who's watching. But this is exactly how the game goes. So, not to spoil too much, obviously, but they're following the game. Like, it's pretty faithful so far. And I know that there's been some complaints on the internet about, like, you know, how they've changed a little bit from the game. And, like, there's a scene where Ellie's supposed to be a little more bruised and bloody than she is, and they didn't make her that way. But if you see the scene that she walked out of, you understand why she's not that bloody or bruised, because the way you play the game is very different from the way Ellie interacts with the world, too. It's a lot less violent than the game. In the game, you're like, there's a zombie, like, every 30 seconds. So, anyway, point being is I think this is going to be great. The season is definitely going to introduce Lev, the trans character, so I'm very excited to see who they cast, and whoever they cast, I think we've said this before, but please protect him with your life, because he's going to need all the protection he can get. Because if you thought the character that they were bashing in season 2 was bad, and the actor they were and also the oh my gosh, Bella Ramsey was also lambasted by the internet too, yeah. Because so it's like, anyway, this kid is going to be under 18. He needs to be protected.
Could they age the character up for that reason?
I think they could definitely get an older actor and maybe play him younger, the way they do with a lot of, like, I think they could maybe cast someone who's maybe not quite 18 yet, but maybe close. And then he could play someone who's maybe in the range of, like, I think Lev is, I want to say between 10 and 14 years old.
That's pretty young.
Yeah. So, like, if they cast an actual kid, like the kids who were cast in the Magical series reboot, we're not going to name. They just cast some very young kids to play the 3 main stars of that. And whether you agree with that show or not, for any variety of reasons, those kids are going to have to be protected. Like, if they go on the internet, it's over for them. They just have to stay off it.
I'm really hopeful, not to go too far into this tangent, but I'm hopeful that the adults who are upset about the adult actors can be a little bit chill about the kids.
Yeah, you'll be able to find out who hates the show because they're transphobic, and who hates the show because, or actually in general queerphobic, or who hates the show because of the changes they're making. Because the people that hate the show over the changes they're making will probably have a very civil discussion, whereas you're about to find out, if anyone's attacking Lev, you know for sure, they were never gonna like the show.
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of zombie games, there have been layoffs at Bend Studio, who are known for making the Days Gone, I want to say series, because there was supposed to be a sequel, but the Days Gone game. And so they laid off 40 people, which doesn't sound like a lot compared to some of the layoffs we've talked about, like Microsoft, cough, cough. But 40 people at Sony Bend is 30% of their staff. And the remaining team is just starting on a new project because Sony just canceled their upcoming live service game. So I have to assume Sony saw another Concord in the wings and, you know, canceled it before it could get that bad, but it's still the money spent and now staff laid off too, so.
Yeah, it's sad that how often this is a news item, but it's important to continue to, you know, bring attention to how often this is happening.
Yeah. I mean, we're not just a queer podcast, we're a woke podcast. Like, at this point, like, I also include stuff to just be a little bit, and I know woke is kind of like a pejorative at this point. It's like almost becoming a slur, if I'm being honest, but like, we're forward thinking, we're progressive thinking. So I try to include stuff that's like not queer related, but like, just like, stuff that people generally care about more. I almost said queer about more. People care about more because generally the LGBTQ plus community is a much more forward thinking group of people. You know, for the most part, anyone who's been on Twitter this week knows that's not always the case, but stay off Twitter anyway. I'm only on there to continue promoting the podcast because there are some people who listen to it and find it through there, which is nice. But yeah, honestly, fuck Elon. So, but speaking of queer games specifically, moving back from woke to just queer, there's been some more behind the scenes gossip on Dragon Age the Veilguard. So back in episode 33, I did discuss how Dragon Age 4, before it was the Veilguard, before it became that version of the game, was troubled from the very start of development. It began as Dragon Age 4, a single player game, and then became a live service game. And then that live service game, which was a reboot in itself of the development, then was kind of converted back to becoming Dragon Age the Veilguard, which was at the time called Dragon Age 4. So Jason Schreier, he has a new article detailing the story in depth, which much more clarity than the original video suggested. Because I remember when I discussed it, I kind of had to pick through all the details to really decipher what that ex-BioWare lead was trying to say, specifically about the timeline of events. So again, it's mostly a recap of what he was saying in clearer terms, but amongst the tidbits in this new article, however, is more information about why Dragon Age the Veilguard turned out so different from the original game. And so basically it boils down to, like, at any point in development, the team was told they had very little time to finish the game. So even though it kept getting, like, pushed back, they were always thought they were, like, a few months away from, like, delivering the game, which sounds very stressful. And so, Jason Schreier did give a Bloomberg gift article, because Bloomberg is not a free website to use, but, he gave a gift article to the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, which will cite down in the show notes, if you want to take a look at that. But basically, the quote is, they were given a year and a half to finish and told to aim for as wide a market as possible. The strict deadline became a recurring problem. The development team would make decisions believing that they had less than a year to release the game, which severely limited the stories they could tell and the world they could build. Then the title would inevitably be delayed a few months, at which point they'd be stuck with those old decisions with no chance to stop and reevaluate what was working. It's a brutal way to develop a game, and it definitely means, like, yeah, if you're, like, adding new things and you're changing, like, hey, let's rejig the formula for Dragon Age a little bit. Let's try this out. Oh, that's where you, like, try it out later and you see, oh, it doesn't work. Maybe we should go back to the drawing board, or maybe we should do what worked best in the past with, like, the Dragon Age Inquisition. But they couldn't do that this time, because they always thought they were close to delivering the game.
It's incredibly sad. Like, for some reason, like, the image I had, because, I don't have any real experience in game development, but I'm imagining someone saying, you have exactly 1 hour to make the best cake you can possibly bake. And then at, like, 45 minutes in, they say, actually, you have 2 hours. And then right at, like, the 1 hour or the 59-minute mark, they're like, you have 2.5 hours. Like, it could be so confusing, because, like, if like livelihoods are on the line as far as how good that final cake was, you would make different decisions about what kind of icing you're using, what kind of, like, actual baking method you're using, what size cake you're making. I don't know why I'm going into cake baking as a metaphor here, but
I think it works, actually. Keep going. No, sorry, I'm not even joking. I like it.
And, like, how you're going to present it. Like, will you have time to do a layered cake? And, if you knew that you had just that initial hour, you could say, okay, this is the cake I know how to make. I'm going to spend, 45 minutes baking it, 15 minutes decorating it, and present my cake. It's going to be great. But getting extra time, like, just near the end over and over again, eventually it's going to be stressful, because if this is an actual, like, cake competition and you don't know how much time the other people are having or what type of cake they actually want, as it's clear, like, with these, the powers that be sort of giving different instructions, like, it's not only frustrating, but the final product it's either not going to be as good, or the people making it are going to be exhausted and probably pretty tired tired with making whatever it is they're making.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to add. That is a good analogy. 10 out of 10 no notes, because the only thing I would add is, like, it sounds to me like, in this analogy, the cake turned out well, and it actually ended up tasting good, but it wasn't the cake that Dragon Age cake eaters expected.
Yeah, they switched the flavor halfway through.
Yeah. And then this did, as we know, lead to a lot of the studio being ousted, or at least no, they weren't ousted, sorry, but they were moved on to other projects at EA, I think. I know that right now it's a very small team working on Mass Effect 5 at BioWare, and I think the rest of what was BioWare is now part of EA proper, but they might still be working in the same building. I'm not 100% sure. But, yeah, so, again, if they had just had more time to make the game that they were, even if they'd had more time to make exactly what they made, I think it would still be probably a better game. And you, to be honest, they could have made the perfect game and it still might not have sold well, because, part of the thing that I'm seeing is that, like, it's still been too long since the last game, and that maybe people aren't as interested, or your core player base didn't necessarily come back for it. And now you've got this new player base expecting something. And what they're playing, because, like, everyone who did play it said it was fine, but it wasn't Dragon Age. So, anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this, just that it's very problematic. Well, we have some more woke news. that's not really necessarily queer related, although we have been talking about AI a lot. And I know this is important to listeners. It's important to regulars. I'm sure if Lloyd were here, he would have something to say for sure. But SAG-AFTRA, the video game actors strike, has officially ended. So all unionized video game voice actors part of SAG-AFTRA were on strike for almost a full year. It started in July 2024. And one of the big sticking points about their contract, because I think I was reading they got almost everything they wanted when they were negotiating last July, but AI was one of those things where they're like, no one was budging. So they finally come to an agreement on protections related to the use of AI and voice acting in, quote, interactive media. And so, from the article, the new contract accomplishes important guardrails and gains around AI, including the requirement of informed consent across various AI uses and the ability for performers to suspend informed consent for digital replica use during a strike. Compensation gains include the establishment of collectively bargained minimums for the use of digital replicas created with IMA-covered performances and higher minimums, 7.5 times scale, for, quote, real-time generation, i.e. embedding a digital replica voiced chatbot in a video game. So that's a lot of technical jargon. That's a lot of union speak. But basically, they have informed consent of AI use. So if AI use is happening, like they can consent via information. Like if you're on HRT, that's informed consent. That's the best way I can explain it. I'm sure it's a lot more detailed in the actual contracts, which we are not privy to. There's no AI recreation of voices during a strike. So, let's say they're making Spider-Man 3 in a few years and there's another strike. And Yuri Lowenthal has voiced 100% of the game, but then the developers are like, oh, hey, we added a new scene to the game. We need a voice for Spider-Man. Well, what's cheaper, to AI generate 10 seconds of Yuri Lowenthal playing Spider-Man, or to go and recast Yuri Lowenthal and have this new actor revoice the entire game? Well, obviously the AI thing is quicker, but they're not allowed to do this anymore. They're now going to have to wait it out to either for the strike to end to AI generate that voice, or to get him back to voice the last scene in Spider-Man 3. All hypothetical, of course. We don't know if Spider-Man 3 is actually in development. What else here? And paying for AI, payment for using an AI version of a voice actor's voice as a chatbot. Similar to Darth Vader in Fortnite, although that was a special case. So, they will receive, compensation, and there will be contracts around all of this. They can't just oh, hey, we want Spider-Man in Fortnite. We're just going to AI generate a chatbot for Yuri Lowenthal's Spider-Man voice.
It's really interesting. This sounds really good. As far as the, dark, dismal reality of AI encroaching on all of our lives, I don't know the details of, this agreement, obviously, but, at the very least, I wish this was a base model for all creative industries of, consent, and I like almost 8 times the payment for a weird generated content bot thing. That should be a minimum. I'm not thrilled about anything regarding the proliferation of AI, but if it has to happen, I like that, unions in this case have bargained for what seems like maybe the best case scenario in a pretty dismal reality.
Yeah, it's actually really nice how quickly the reactions are to this, because this is kind of SAG-AFTRA related, but it's mostly film industry related. But when the internet was happening and there was there was MP3s on the internet, and there was, digital movie files and YouTube and all these other things, DVDs, Blu-rays, home media, it took a very long time for, unions to react to that reality, and for contracts to update accordingly. Even now there's stuff that's stuck in rights limbo because they negotiated for VHS but not disc media for a movie on DVD or something, right? So the fact that there's still stuff kind of in limbo for that, and it took a long time to begin with, 20, 25, 30 years ago, for all this stuff to kind of update. The fact that AI has really only become viable to use for this kind of stuff in the last, I want to say it's been less than 2 years. I remember not using AI at work less than 2 years ago, and now it's becoming commonplace to just AI generate a voice. So, I just think this is a good reaction and a good response, and I agree with you. All right, we've got a couple quick headlines here. Silent Hill 1 is getting a remake. That's basically the headline. We've known Bloober Team, who remade Silent Hill 2 last year, was working with Konami on another game for a little while, but now we know it's a remake of Silent Hill 1. There's no details, there's no gameplay, there's no cutscenes, there's no footage, there's not even a release date announced, just that it's in development.
Was this the only game announced at the Konami Direct? Because I kind of heard that was coming. And I thought it would be really funny if they just kind of haphazardly announced that another Silent Hill remake is happening, and then the rest of the Direct was just pachinko machines. But I wasn't watching it.
I didn't watch it either. In fact, I didn't check. I forgot to schedule it and to watch it. And then by the time it came and went, I only saw this headline. I have to assume maybe they said something about, they showed footage or something, or, they replayed the trailer for Silent Hill F from the PlayStation State of Play. Maybe? And maybe, and I think there might have been news about Metal Gear, there was Metal Gear Solid Delta news. I think they highlighted the multiplayer stuff.
I want
or
them
whatever
to just,
the Ape Escape stuff is, sorry.
I want them to just, have a spotlight on a statue of Bomberman and have someone, sort of put their hands on their hips and look at it and then cut and then nothing. just weird things with all of their properties. And then the next, one of the other scenes is someone in an incredibly fancy, Victorian chair with a fireplace and a fancy mantelpiece. And they open up this giant tomb of a book that says Castlevania on the front, and they open it and then it just fades to black. No game or movie or anime announcement. Just, these are things we own. We're gonna make you angry with pictures of them.
Well, okay, so I don't really talk too much about leaks that can't be confirmed, but someone at Video Games Chronicle has been leaked a few years ago that Konami was working on something for Castlevania, a new game, or some kind of I have to assume here's my assumption. So apparently after this Silent Hill, I almost called it a Silent Hill Direct, this Konami Direct, people were expecting, and they didn't get it, some kind of Castlevania news. And so, I think it was Andy Robinson at Video Games Chronicle was asked, is this Castlevania thing still happening? And he said, as far as I know, yes, or something to that effect. He said, what I know is, it's still happening. There's been no updates since, kind of thing. So, I have to assume that Symphony of the Night, which is the Super Metroid of Castlevania games, it's the Castlevania game, is getting some kind of remake because they've done a bunch of Castlevania collections, ports, NSO has a bunch of the Castlevania games, but mysteriously absent from all platforms right now, aside from maybe PC. Symphony of the Night is nowhere. So I have to imagine if they're trying to reboot Castlevania, they're gonna remake that and then maybe make a sequel using the assets from that, maybe. I don't know.
And guest Castlevania characters seem everywhere, in AAA games and indie games. Castlevania characters just seem to be have all of them. Literally hundreds of I forget which game, but there's a game that has dozens of Castlevania characters as part of the DLC or something, which was very funny. Especially with Alucard being sort of the only consistent character across the animated series that they've released. I could see that happening as far as Symphony of the Night goes. My dream that will never happen, though, is that we haven't heard anything because the game that they're developing is Metroidvania. And it will be at a 2027 Nintendo Direct, because it can't be too close to Metroid Prime 4. And they're making a game just called Metroidvania. And Samus just lands on a planet and there's Dracula's castle on the planet.
That sounds amazing. If Nintendo ever agreed to that, they would never in a million years acknowledge the term Metroidvania.
It would be amazing if they made it and didn't call it Metroidvania.
They'd call it Metroid meets they'd give it a really bad title, to be honest. It'd be Metroid X Castlevania Symphony of the Super or something. I don't know. What's a Metroid game called? Symphony of the Prime? I don't know. But yeah, you're right. I think that sounds really cool.
Castle Troid, and everyone's just really?
Because we haven't heard anything about if they're making Metroid 6. I think the studio that made Metroid Dread is working on, I think people have deduced that they're working on 2 games and neither of them can possibly be Metroid 6. So maybe that this new Castlevania game is a Metroid game, and that's why there's no Metroid 6 in development, because Metroid 6 is Metroidvania. But again, this is all speculation, so anyone listening to this is like, this sounds really great. Did they announce? They did not announce this. This is not
absolutely
a real game.
Not.
But Amy-Lynn is 1 for 1 so far with predictions. So stick around. Maybe in a couple years, we're going to find out that Metroidvania is a game, and Amy-Lynn will become our Lord and Savior prophet. Okay, so we have some kind of weird news here, and it's like queer adjacent, but I thought it was relevant because maybe some people bought this game and they might want to know or maybe they're planning to buy this game and they might want to know about this. But also it is queer adjacent because it's related to Cyberpunk. But if you bought Mind's Eye on PlayStation, which came out this week, you might be entitled to a refund. So Mind's Eye is a recently released game, which honestly I know very little about. It's not my cup of tea. I think I zoned out when they showed it off at Summer Games Fest. I think they showed it there. But it just released, and apparently it's in even more of an unplayable state, like a mess than Cyberpunk 2077 was back in 2020. So for anyone who doesn't know, Cyberpunk was famously released in a nearly unplayable state at launch, especially for previous gen consoles like PS4 and Xbox One. And so I've actually read players saying it might actually be worse than Cyberpunk. But some players are reporting that Sony is offering refunds for people who purchased the game digitally, which is what happened with Cyberpunk 2077, although I think those refunds came direct from CD Projekt Red at the time. But famously, or infamously, Cyberpunk 2077 was also delisted for a very long time while the devs worked to fix the game. So it's possible that Mind's Eye might also get delisted. So that has not happened yet, but I am wondering, like, is it going to happen? Because if it's worse than Cyberpunk and Sony has to issue refunds, then it's better to delist the game than have to have people buy it and constantly get refunds on it. So, and also, I think this is bad news. Personally, I'm a little disappointed about this, but Sony is turning its attention to the PlayStation 6. If you heard an audible groan at some point this week, that was me. I feel like the PS5 generation has barely started. I'm not even just from a games perspective, because I've enjoyed the games that have released, but time is also just flying by. And Sony is now talking about the next generation. So Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO and President Hideaki Nishino said this: "We now have a large ecosystem of highly enraged players. We now have a large ecosystem of highly engaged players across both the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4 generations. So naturally, therefore, there's a huge interest in our next generation console strategy." Just a side note, this is now Zoe speaking, not quoting. If people are still interested in the PlayStation 4, and you're still talking about it in the same breath as the PlayStation 5, is it really time for PlayStation 6? Think about that, Sony. Is it time for this? Anyway, the quote continues, "While we cannot share further details at this stage, the future of the platform is top of mind. We are committed to exploring a new and enhanced way for players to engage with our content and services." Now, granted, they didn't say PlayStation 6 here, but reading between the lines, they're talking about PlayStation 6, maybe even their rumored PlayStation 6 handheld, which is going to be kind of like the Switch, I think, or like the Portal, but with like actual console internals inside it. But console generations are usually 7 years or so a PS6 in 2027 makes sense. But like advancements in tech keep getting smaller and smaller. It really feels like this generation kind of got butchered because so many multiplayer games were canceled and they're still dealing with the fallout of that. Like there hasn't been a new Naughty Dog game since 2020. Yes, there's been ports and remakes and remasters, but like we don't even know when Intergalactic is coming out. I'm assuming not till at least next year. They announced Wolverine in the same breath as Spider-Man 2, and we still don't have Wolverine. There's like one big Sony first-party game coming out this year, and it's Ghost of Yotei. And while I'm very happy about that game, I'm very excited for it, especially with the queerness involved in it. It's one game. If Nintendo released one big game in a year, there would be fire in the streets. There would be riots. There would be an apocalypse. So, also, selfishly, I don't want a PS6 to be soon because I know that they're going to immediately port Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. It's going to be a PS6 game that runs significantly worse on PS5. And then I'm going to be compelled to buy a PS6 just so I can play the game with decent visuals. And it's one of my most anticipated games of all time at this point. And I could say, it's an exclusive in the works, but I really doubt that Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be exclusive at this point with the series now coming to Xbox and Nintendo. But anyway, Amy-Lynn, do you have any thoughts on the PlayStation 6?
Not really, although, like, it's funny to imagine, like, from a Nintendo perspective of Nintendo saying, "We know people are enjoying the Wii U and the Switch 1, but the Switch 3 is coming out soon."
Yeah. Like, I think I read something and I don't know where I read this, it might have even been the same article, that the PlayStation 5 just kind of passed PlayStation 4, not in terms of sales, but in terms of like active users. And like the fact that there's still a lot of like third-party games are still getting PS4 ports, only digitally for the record, not a lot of physical releases, but PlayStation 4 is still getting games. And this reminds me of like the PlayStation 2 generation into the PlayStation 3. But at least the PlayStation 3 was getting games. Sony hasn't, like, when Sony had their last showcase, which is like bigger than a State of Play, it's like an E3 level event, they didn't really have much first party to talk about. And I think I neglected to mention Saros is on its way too. And we're supposed to hear about that sometime this year. I thought it was going to be last week, but we didn't hear about it. But yeah, Nintendo was saying like, yeah, people are still playing the Wii U and the Switch 1, but we've got the Switch 3 coming out is like wild to me.
It's so weird and kind of sad, like, in a way. Like, there was, I've very much been a Nintendo person my entire life. Aside from, like, Dreamcast. I love Dreamcast. But, like, with PlayStation 2 and 3, and a little bit into 4, there were PlayStation games that tempted me. Like, I owned a PlayStation 2 very late in the PlayStation 2 life. I owned a PlayStation 3 relatively briefly. And, like, there were games that attracted me, like the Persona games. The Kingdom Hearts games attracted me, even though I never played any of them on a PlayStation, home console at least. Eternal Sonata, like, there were, games, like the original Sonic Generations, they were games that I'm really glad I had a PlayStation 3, or in some cases a PlayStation 2, for things like Odin Sphere to play. But a lot of those games, those types of games now, are either initially coming out on the Switch, or they're so long that I say I'll wait until they come out on the Switch, and then I'll have aged so long that I'm not into games that take that long to play anymore.
Yeah. Especially like a lot of Sony games are coming to PC now, and I'm not saying that Sony is going to become a third-party studio. I think they're going to support and have exclusives for a very long time, but I do think, like Xbox, they're going to start opening up, like, they've got Patapon, which was originally a PlayStation exclusive, wasn't it Sony Studios? MLB The Show was their first kind of segue into third-party support, but they also had to, I think legally they had to release it, because it was like a what do you call it? Like trust issue? Not a trust issue. Anyway, I'm forgetting the words for that. But
yeah, like, I know what you mean.
And then they also released Lego Horizons on Switch, because obviously Lego games sell better there. So I wonder if like, and then yeah, obviously some of the PC ports haven't run super well, but for the most part they have. So I think like Sony is realizing there's probably, with games being so expensive and what they are, it might be better to release some of these games on other consoles. I don't think you're going to see your Astrobots. But I could honestly see one day, like Uncharted, like the original trilogy they released on PS4 as a port. I could one day see that coming to Switch and Xbox. Maybe not Xbox, because Sony seems to really hate the Xbox. They're like, yeah, we'll work with Nintendo because they're Japanese, but fuck Microsoft. So like Lego Horizons didn't come to Xbox, but it came to Switch. So I could one day see like Uncharted or The Last of Us Part 1, like the PS3 version coming to Switch, because it probably wouldn't be able to run. I don't think the Switch could ever run the remake. So I don't remember where I was going with this, just that I think Sony will eventually, oh yeah, you were talking about how like you wait for these games to come out on other consoles. And I do think like, yeah, like especially with the PlayStation 6, like I think, and also the cost of living, with the cost of living going up and the cost of consoles going up, which I think I mentioned earlier, but like, it's just like, I see very few people buying into the PlayStation 6. And in fact, like, it still remains to be seen if the Switch 2 is actually going to sell really well, because yeah, it's sold out the first week. It's breaking records. I know that. But like, are we going to see these consoles continue to sell well as things with the tariffs and cost of living and prices just keep going up? So anyway, it all remains to be seen. Okay, we have one last headline here, and it's a doozy. And I'm going to read a lot from this article, because the article says it better than I possibly could summarize, because it's actually a very well succinct written article. And it comes from Pink News, and basically old school RuneScape, which is like classic RuneScape that was eventually like kind of like remastered and brought back. I think some people call it RuneScape 2007, is canceling its in-game Pride events. Or maybe RuneScape 2007 was like a remake, and then that was what was... Anyway, No, it is. In fact, it's here in my notes. So I'm just going to, you know what? See, this is why I'm not summarizing this. It's in here in this. I'm going to quote this. Okay. In 2013, so they're canceling in-game Pride events. In 2013, following community feedback, Jagex, who makes RuneScape, launched old school RuneScape OSRS, a version of the game based on a 2007 backup of RuneScape. Unlike the modern RuneScape, OSRS maintains a more retro nostalgic feel with updates voted on by the community. RuneScape and OSRS have become important to LGBTQ+ gamers for several reasons. From its earliest days, RuneScape's open-ended gameplay made it a refuge for LGBTQ+ players. In addition, RuneScape has clans and community groups that form long-term friendships. Many queer players have found these to be deeply supportive safe spaces. Also, Jagex has for many years run Pride Month events, charity drives for LGBTQ+ causes, and shared support for diversity, all of which resonated with LGBTQ+ players. For example, the RuneScape 2024 Pride event started on 3rd June 2024 and involved helping a character named Rain host a Pride-themed parade. So from, like, just a general perspective, like, it seems like they were pretty supportive and good up until now.
Also, Rain is one of the most queer names possible, so good on you there.
Yeah, you can tell, like, whoever was making this content, whether that name was voted on or not, like, that, you're right, that is a very queer name. And I love it. I love it. I'm not making fun of it. It's just very, like, it's very queer. All right, so we're going to continue here because we're getting to the juicy bits. I'm just always pausing for a little bit of discussion because it's also a lot of reading. But anyway, yeah. Pink News has been shown evidence that reveals deep-seated internal conflict and division between the company's management and many of its staff around this year's Pride Month content. On Friday, April 25th, shortly after new CEO John Bellamy was installed, Bellamy posted a message on the company's internal message board stating that RuneScape and old school RuneScape would not be running any 2025 Pride Month content, so that developers could instead focus more on, quote, what players wanted, unquote. Many members of staff pushed back against this, stating that the work around the annual Pride events was either already complete or straightforward to implement in-game. Staff members volunteered to finish the Pride event content in their own time. Others asked why there couldn't simply be an in-game Pride parade, which would not have entailed development time. Oh, that gets my blood boiling.
Yeah.
So fucking much.
The fact that there is more to both this story and this person's responses after that is just, like, evidence on its own as far as how broken this situation was.
Yeah, I don't even like I played RuneScape as a kid. I did it to fit in with a group of friends when I was trying very much to be macho, masculine man boy person. I never really enjoyed it, but to be honest, I see what people enjoyed about it. It's very much like, it's a proto cozy game almost, right? And so the fact that, and when I found out that, like, they brought the classic version of it back from a friend a few years ago, I was like, oh, that's really nice actually, because I'm sure it's probably more popular than, like, whatever they rebooted with. And I also didn't know up until recently that it was so queer inclusive, which I think is great because the people I played with were very much not queer inclusive. So, and they were downright homophobic most of the time. But, so anyway, to find out that, like, it's aged well and it, like, has aged well with queer players is really nice to hear. And that they're just like, yeah, we spent money on this already. And the rest of it, like, people are literally volunteering their time for a corporation that benefits not at all to help people who want to enjoy Pride Month content, and they're still saying no. So anyway, let's get to this last chunk of here. This is a really long article actually, and I do recommend you go reading it. It's not like long, but I'm only like highlighting the relevant bits here. But anyway, quote, in a follow-up Q&A session convened to address staff concerns, the CEO, accompanied by the chief people and culture officer, made it clear that the decision to roll back Pride content was related to the current political climate, and that the choice to discontinue Pride Month events was to avoid, quote, backlash, unquote, Anyway, we're gonna get to this. He continued, I understand that RuneScape is precious because it's a safe space. It is an escape from reality, and the reality that we find ourselves in is changing. It is getting stranger, more troubling, less moral, I would argue. Games and studios are being cancelled because of content that is perceived to be woke or representative. The pendulum is swinging back in a way we didn't expect. First off, no, that's not happening. That's complete bullshit. Nothing has been cancelled because of woke. Okay? That is made up bullshit by the other fucking... Anyway. Oh my gosh. So continuing here. He confirmed that the OSRS Pride mini-quest is being discontinued for 2025, and the Tales of Pride event will return to RuneScape, but without newly developed content, stating... The quote, the content is now controversial in a way it didn't used to be, and that controversy now brings more risk than it did previously. Risk that I'm personally responsible to protect against. It's the only slightly reasonable thing he said, and it's not reasonable at all, but on a scale of one, like not reasonable to reasonable, that ranks like a 5 compared to the like 1 of not reasonable, everything else he said.
But if it's so reasonable and like understandable and true, which I get it, why is the old stuff coming back? If it was so dangerous for them to implement pride things, why is old pride things okay? Like, that's what I don't get about that part.
I don't get any of it. I'm just going to read the last sentence here, and then I'm going to kind of go on a tangent here with you. But they did say, however, community organized in-game pride marches will be permitted to continue. The only thing I can think of, and that's everything we're going to quote from the article, the only thing I can think of is like, maybe he's worried. I mean, first off, I think he's spineless. I think he leans towards hating gay people, and he's spineless, right? Because he's new, right? He's not the old, it's a new guard over there, kind of dictating this. So the only thing I think of is like, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, is that they're like maybe worried about like people that don't play this game showing up to like cause problems, the same way that like when Thousand Year Door was coming out last year, the remake, suddenly people that had never like looked at a Mario cap in their life were suddenly like, they had opinions on how Mario games should be with trans characters. And so I can see concern for that, but this is like this is like a Streisand effect. Like if you had just done it, I don't think people would have been worried about it. And then you can deal with it when it comes. But I genuinely think like, and I see, I don't agree with it, but I see why groups like Stonewall and other groups that are like canceling trans things because they're worried about losing funding from the government that will ultimately help trans people. And maybe Stonewall's not a great example for that, so ignore that. But the point is like a lot of organizations are like at risk of losing funding because they don't agree with what Trump is saying. So they're agreeing with what he's saying, and then I assume behind closed doors still doing what they're continuing to doing what they've always been doing. But forward facing, they look like they're transphobic. Whereas this, like, what money is Jagex getting from the US government that they have to worry about fucking Donald Trump?
It is completely ridiculous. As you said, it does really read as something quite spineless. Especially, as I mentioned, like the contradiction of like, yeah, you can do some pride things. We're just not going to put a lot of energy or effort or money or time into it officially. So that doesn't really track if your excuse is we're afraid of backlash, because that queer content is still going to be there, regardless if, I mean, I guess it means that the company has like deniability of, oh, this is just creative content that we had no control into and legacy content. We're not supporting anything new, but no one would have and probably still won't really care about RuneScape.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too. It's not even like modern RuneScape. It's the classic fucking RuneScape that like I'm sure at this point has like a cult following, like a very like tight knit, you know, not closed off to new people, but like it's probably just like a very dedicated player base, and that's it. And like I bet, I don't know for sure, but I bet you can still spend money to buy like, I think they called it gold at the time, where you could like buy you spend real money to get in-game currency. It was one of the earliest games that I remember having that and thinking like, wow, who would spend money on that? And then my friends did. Anyway, not judging, just like, I never saw the value in it. But yeah, so like what would they be losing money by including pride content? Is there like, it really just feels like this guy was like posturing and like swinging his weight around because he's new, and he's like, well, you know, pride isn't cool anymore. And that's basically what he's saying, is like, he's trying to say that like people are homophobic now, and that's okay. So now we're allowed to be homophobic too, or queerphobic or transphobic, whichever phobic you want to apply to this. That's because like a few months ago, it was just trans people. And like we predicted, now it's everyone. Now it's all pride shit.
It's not even like aggressive queerphobia. It's just cowardice.
It makes my blood boil. The fact that he's like, the pendulum is swinging back in a way we didn't expect. Like, okay, that is true. But then he's also like, games or studios are being canceled because of content that is perceived to be woke or representative. That's not true. That's just, I need, like, maybe there's like one example of this, but like across the board, like queer content is still doing, like Dragon Age wasn't canceled because it was woke. Like Dragon Age didn't fail because it was woke. If that's an example we're going to bring up, because first off, it came too far after the original Dragon Age games. Second off, it was too different from the original Dragon Age games, so you alienated the original player base. Third, it came out at a time when there was so much else to play, especially games, like, it came out right after Life is Strange. Like, I think the same week as, like, the new Life is Strange. So your queer player base is it's the SpongeBob meme where he's looking two directions. His eyes are, like, split, the opposite of crossed, and he's, like, reading a book or something. And so, like, you know, I had a choice that week. I was like, I can play Dragon Age, or I can play Life is Strange. First off, I like Life is Strange as a series better. I know it better. Not because I don't like Dragon Age, I just know it better and I like it. But also, Life is Strange was shorter and cheaper to play. So, like, if we're just talking purely about queer, and we already know that, like, for the most part, gamers, aside from a very small vocal minority, for the most part, players don't care if you get peanut butter in your woke peanut butter in your chocolate. So, like, we know this from the GLAAD report that we talked about earlier this year. I think that was episode 15, if you want to go back and listen to it, at True Avatars, because, anyway, I could talk about this for weeks and never get to my point. My point is, fuck John Bellamy. I saw someone refer to him as a bellend, John Bellend, and I think that's great. Honestly, like, to be honest, I would almost respect him more if he was just like, you know what, we're canceling all the pride shit and leaving it at that. And not saying I would respect him, just that I would respect him a little bit more and saying like at least Trump is sticking to his guns and being like, I hate queer people. Whereas this guy's just kind of like, oh, I don't know. He's a bumblefuck. He's a bumblefuck. Anyway, I'm sorry. I've been talking over you. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
So this might be an entire topic of its own, but I'm just curious. What is the most popular overtly woke game? Is it Cyberpunk?
So yeah, that's the thing. Cyberpunk is really popular and it just released on Switch too. And it's doing really well with people that I know are not necessarily like supportive. They might not be hateful, but like it's doing really well because the physical copy is complete on cartridge and the game runs well. A game that had so much shit around it at launch because it was, first off, it was queer inclusive. You could make a trans woman with a penis in the actual game as your avatar. Even if you never saw anything about that again. You could make your character a trans woman or a trans man with the matching genitals. It launched in an absolutely deplorable state. And then they launched DLC. And now apparently even the DLC in the Switch 2 version doesn't run super well. It runs as well as the base game. So this game has everything going against it. Like literally everything going against it. And people are still excited about it. And it's woke. So I don't know if Cyberpunk is the most woke game, but like that's a good example because like it's not getting canceled. It should be canceled for everything that you think would be cancelable. And it is still, in spite of all of that, doing very fucking well. So like, you're telling me RuneScape, which probably has like what? Maybe like a few thousand dedicated players? I don't know for sure what those numbers are, but like, anyway. All right. Well, we've ranted about this enough. We could go, like I said, this podcast would literally be like weeks long if I was allowed to continue much longer. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Women-Led Games SGF 2025 showcase. And we're also going to talk about our first thoughts, impressions, everything to do with the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2. So don't go away. Hi, True Avatars. We're back from the break, and we're going to talk about Women-Led Games, the Summer Games Fest Showcase edition. I'm not sure what they're really calling it. They are calling it on the page the Women-Led Games Showcase, but I was seeing on other page it was the Women-Led Games Summer Game Fest Showcase 2025 edition or something like that. Edition 2025. Yeah, so anyway, I'm just like getting tongue-tied here over what they're calling this. But basically, it's a showcase that features games made by women developers. And there's a lot of queer games in here too because... shocker, women are supportive more so than men. Anyway, so let's jump right into this. There's a few games here. First off, we have Angeline Era, and I should say, because sometimes I kick True Avatars get regulars out after, or people leave in the podcast, but Amy-Lynn is still here. Say hi, Amy-Lynn.
Hello.
So first off, we have Angeline Era. An unforgettable and wild bump/action adventure. Explore a world of fae, humans, and angels where hilarious hazards and charming creatures await. Will you uncover its mysteries? This comes from, this is a list of names actually, but Melos Hantani and Marina Kitaka. It is an action-adventure, top-down hack and slash. It almost looks like if they'd made a 2D Zelda on the N64. That's the best way I can describe the visuals. Actually, there's a couple shots here where I was like, this actually kind of looks like Runescape. Speak of the devil. And it also comes from Analgesic Productions. I don't actually know if I'm pronouncing that word correctly. I've never been able to pronounce that word correctly. Now, right now, it is still Steam Next Fest, so there is a demo available. I don't know if this demo is going to be available when this podcast goes up on Monday, because Steam Next Fest will be over. So some of these games might have demos, they might not. I don't want to promise that there will be though, but this game looks great, and this game is a game that has the LGBTQ plus tag. Next up, we have a game called KreatureKind, with 2 Ks, all one word. Magic will disappear forever unless you save it. In this wholesome and approachable card game, you debate monsters, recruit friends, and start a world-changing movement. Balance your team and decks carefully, and use your debate skills to convince fantastical opponents to join your side. So, this game was featured, it's already available, it comes from Valiant Game Studio, and it does have the LGBTQ plus tag. First off, I'm not really into deck builders too much. It's gotta be the right kind. Like, it's just, learning a new card game every time is stressful for me, because I feel like my brain only has the space for a couple of card games. I've learned Queen's Blood in Final Fantasy, and also that's the other thing too, is when I get into a card game, I get into it. Like Queen's Blood in Final Fantasy VII Remake, or Rebirth, I was addicted to it. In fact, I'm like waiting patiently for either a spin-off game or a real card game based on it, because it's great. But yeah, this game is very cute. It's got, like, I know I use this word a lot, but it's kind of got like a sugary 2D art style. And I'm curious about the debate elements to it. I think that's really cool. There is a demo available right now. I'm not sure if it's part of Steam Next Fest, but the game is also, it says it's on sale, but it says the sale ends yesterday. I'm gonna refresh. Maybe I just haven't updated this tab. Okay, no, it's not on sale currently. Okay, so for some reason the tab didn't update even though I refreshed it earlier. So it's not on sale. I'm sorry to get your hopes up. But yeah, go check this out. It looks super adorable.
I agree with you that I'm very much usually not into card games. I think if I was, Baten Kaitos would be one of my favorite games, and that's what kind of turned me off. I'm really happy it did get a re-release, which is ridiculous. But yeah, the card mechanics, often, unfortunately, a bit of a turn-off. But I think you're right, it does look really cool, and the debate element seems kind of unique.
Yeah, I was on the debate team in high school, so like this actually, I mean, all these games are on my wish list. Like every single time I come across a new queer game, on the wish list it goes. And like a lot of these games go on sale very often, and I'm just like, oh no, my wallet. So I think this is going to be another one of those games that I'm going to have to play at some point. But the problem is I don't have time to play every game, at least right now. I mean, summer's coming and I'm going to have a lot more time to game. So we'll see. Maybe this is one I bite into. But another game here that I'm really excited about is called Downhill. Meet Fade, the main character of this action RPG, who is painfully aware that you are controlling her. How will you act when faced with the temptations of absolute power over someone so vulnerable? All while on a mission to save a revolution-torn realm from an unnatural disaster. So, this is like a top-down RPG. It's an action RPG, but this is like if you're playing like like a Final Fantasy game almost, but like the protagonist is aware that you're controlling them. And this is a kind of a trope that I've noticed is like becoming more common in games. And I call it a trope, not to be diminishing, but just that it's like probably at this point on TV tropes where like you've got these kinds of games where like people know the characters are like self-aware that they're being controlled or that they're aware they're in a game and they kind of break the fourth wall. But I think this is super cool. There's a female protagonist. It does have the LGBTQ plus tag, which is, I don't know how it's queer, but it has the tag. And it comes from Sisterhood Games, and there's a demo. Release date still to be announced. And actually, I'm going to go back, because I don't know if Angeline Era... No, it says 2025 for Angeline Era, but Downhill, yeah, it's just to be announced. So I don't know when this is... coming out, but I do like the concept of, like you're kind of like, there's some conflict between the player and the player character, knowing that, like, you're controlling this person. And there's a struggle between the two of you that like makes the game kind of your own experience that's unique to you. Next up, we have Kokoro Kitchen. In this delightful farm-to-table cooking game, you'll restore a cozy Japanese restaurant, cultivate a bountiful garden of fresh ingredients, and prepare mouth-watering Japanese dishes for hungry locals. Use your culinary skills to help bring a little life back up to the spirit world. This comes from Mango Leaf Games, which I think is a very cute name for a studio, not just because I have a gecko named Mango. Who's in a timeout right now because she did jumpies illegally last night. For anyone who's wondering, sometimes she'll decide that like she just wants to jump from my hand to literally nowhere, and I have to catch her and pray that she doesn't like smack her little head on the floor or fall. Or like I know they can survive very tall falls, but anyway, Mango is currently in a timeout. I mean, it's her sleepy time, so she's in a timeout anyway. But yeah, she's in a little bit of trouble because she knows that jumpies are against the law because they stress mom out. But yeah, so this is a casual sim game, time management, cooking, all that stuff. You know, if you like Stardew Valley, you know, it's a little bit of that. it's got this 3D, cell shaded, but top down art style. The top down element isn't so much like above like Stardew Valley or like a Legend of Zelda. It's more like kind of like you're watching from like a painting on the wall almost. Like there's these inside shots that look like that. So, I almost want to say visually it looks it reminds me a little bit of Frogun, if anyone's played that, although the graphics look a little bit cleaner. It's not emulating like an N64 or PS1 style game. But yeah, I think Mango Leaf's game's co-founder is queer. Amy-Lynn, this actually seems like your kind of game. What are your thoughts on this?
I do agree that it looks pretty cute. Yeah, I've been looking at screenshots this entire time because I didn't get to, I guess, watch the stream or have a look, but, the graphics are super cute. I like the, I think I didn't play Frogun, but I can definitely see the, sort of, clean, late or mid 90s era aesthetic kind of thing. Yeah, very cute.
Yeah, and the protagonist has blue hair and I assume pronouns, so it's woke. Okay, next up we have Prison of Husks. This game is very different vibe-wise from Kokoro Kitchen. This game is like very devoid of color. There is color in it, but it's very muted. It's very
grim.
Yeah, very grim. And this game does look like a PS1
Gothic,
era.
maybe. Gothic is
good. It actually looks like if Dark Souls was made in the 90s. And it's a Souls-like, so a nostalgic Souls-like set in a painted afterlife. Awaken as a doll and seek your beloved. From parries to pistols, tune your build to overcome adversity. Explore dense, interconnected levels, full of secrets and shortcuts as you battle pigment-hoarding bosses that seek your lost love. So this comes from the studio called Glasshead Dolls. The developer is trans. I don't think it has the queer tag though, so I'm not sure that a lot of the queerness is like going to be overt, but given that it's made by a trans person, I think it always shows through in some way.
The doll metaphor alone, like I've done that in my own work. I love it. I think it's great. Yeah, I haven't played any Souls-like to my knowledge, unless I played one that was sort of covertly one. Maybe Fragile Dreams for the Wii counts, even though it predates it. But it is kind of weird that people are nostalgic for Souls games now.
Yeah, well, the first one, Demon Souls, that was the first one that came out. That was like 2007, 8, or 9, something like that?
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm going to look that up, actually, because now I'm curious. I thought it was a while ago, though, that the original came out.
If it is that year, that is a while ago.
Oh, yeah, so 2009, early 2009.
Oh, wow.
Which, to be honest, we are starting to see nostalgia for like the Wii PS3 era. I do think it's any minute now we're going to see games from that era shoot up in price. And like some of them already have because they're rare, but like, I mean, like across the board, like your Wii Sports, which is like a dime a dozen, is going to be like $100. So like, I'm not saying like go manipulate the market or go, rush out and get the games you want. But right now it's cheap to collect for those consoles. And even, some stores still sell brand new PS3 games that you can buy.
Oh, wow.
I know all the Sonic games are still available at VGP, for example. So, but yeah, anyway, we're talking about Prison of Husks here. And it does look really good. I don't know that this game is for me. Souls-likes are too hard. I don't have the patience. But I think if you like Souls-likes and you want something that looks like a kind of like a Demon Souls or a Dark Souls from like the PS1 or the early PS2 era, this game is for you. Plus it was made by a trans woman, so go support queer devs, go wishlist this.
And it does feel like an auteur game. Like it feels like there is an intention behind it, like, games is art. I like it. It feels like, there is a story to tell here. There's even an art to the gameplay that's being replicated. Very intentional game, which I always appreciate, even if I don't play them.
And also, so I didn't mention this for Kokoro Kitchen, but that is just says coming soon. And for Prison of Husks, it says to be announced for the release date. So no dates for these yet. And then we have Death and Faeology. I'm now refreshing all the tabs to make sure I have everything correct here. So Death and Faeology. In a world where the Fae touched fall prey to a sinister killer, only a Faeologist can uncover the truth. A dark academia, murder mystery visual novel with supernatural cases, interactive investigation, romanceable characters, and multiple endings set in the roaring 1920s New York. Up until that roaring 1920s part of the description, I was like, this is everything I would expect from a queer game.
I love the premise of this game. I love the kind of dual graphics of the game. I'm not sure I'm in love with the protagonist, which is, kind of a mean thing to say. Like, he just looks like generic man, which is really disappointing for a game called Love and Faeology or Death and Faeology. I love fairy and fairy myth. So definitely a really cool game. But yeah, it's weird that, I'm going against the inverse of that survey in the sense that the potentially queer character is turning me off.
Yeah. The art style, you mentioned the art style, and it looks like if like a Resident Evil game or like an LA Noire is kind of like in visual novel form. Despite the phase that are like very colorful and kind of stand out a little bit. I mean, they blend in nicely. Like, it looks like they're part of the art style, but they definitely are the most colorful thing about the game, where it's like a lot of browns and a lot of grays. But yeah, it does have the LGBTQ plus tag, but I'm not sure where obviously the description is very queer, and then you've got this like cishet dude. I mean, he could be gay for all we know, and he's just like a hunk. I don't know.
Yeah, like with the romanceable characters, like I'm guessing that one of them is like there's a man like side character or main character that, it's like a date everyone, or not date everyone, that's a game, but date anyone in the game kind of situation, and maybe that's where the queerness comes from. I really hope the queerness isn't that like their first murder mystery is a dead person, or that the Fae touched are all queer people, and the people who you're investigating are all the dead queer people, and your playable characters and side characters are the straight heroes that are going to investigate their murders. Like, I don't think so. I want to make that clear, but the setting and things like that makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah, this one is one we're going to have to watch and see. The release date has to be announced. There is a demo, but again, it's Steam Next Fest as we record this, so I don't know if this demo is going to be available at the time this podcast releases.
Very fun fairy designs, though. Like, I love so much about this game visually. I'll have to check it out further.
Yeah, and it's a visual novel too, so I know visual novels don't inherently get easily ported to other consoles, but I think there's a good chance that, like, if this does well, it could come to other consoles too. So if you're a visual novel person, but you only have like a Switch, for example, I can definitely see this coming there at some point. We also have Longstory 2. I had never heard of Longstory 1, but this game is a sequel to Longstory. Are you ready for more Longstory drama? The next installment of this beloved series brings more dates, deeper friendships, trickier dilemmas, and some fascinating surprises. So, this comes from Bloom Digital Media. The release date is coming soon. The LGBTQ plus tag is actually like, it's the fourth tag, and it's like visible without having to click into all the other tags that are listed. You can see it on the page. So it like wears its queerness on its sleeve, thankfully. Have you heard of the Longstory series before, Amy-Lynn?
I haven't, but looking at it, it does look really cute. Like both the promotional art and the in-game art. This one seems fun. I'm not sure if it's a situation where we can jump into Longstory 2 without playing one. If it is, I'm sure that there are a lot of improvements that have been made over the original. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming. So it is something that I would probably want to at least wishlist so I don't forget it exists.
Yeah, for sure. Go wishlist it. It's a visual novel, romance, dating sim. Those are the first three tags, and the fourth one is LGBTQ+. It looks like that the fourth screenshot here, now granted, it's the last screenshot in the series, but it's got a sugary art style, but the fourth and final screenshot here has a character being, like two men kissing, and then the person saying, "Holy crap, Marcel just kissed me in public." They're not really hiding this one, so I have to assume Longstory 1, I'm going to look it up here, but Longstory 1 is probably also queer, and if not, I'd be surprised. Oh no, the LGBTQ plus tag is actually the second tag for Longstory 1.
Oh wow.
And actually this came out all the way back in December 2017, so it's been a little while.
I'm glad they got a sequel then. That's great.
Yeah, I'm super curious. And it does look like some of the characters are... The character that's saying, like, holy crap, Marcel just kissed me is also here in the screenshots for the original. So you probably do need to play Longstory 1 to understand it, or at least get more out of it. All right, we have one last game here. You can hear my voice is going. It's been a long week of talking. And also, I've got really bad allergies this week. Like, I've noticed, like, as soon as I step outside, if it's not cold, which is really unseasonably cold for June, my nose is running either because of the cold or because of allergies, so... I'm sure that sounds very gross to say, but I've been a little phlegmy this week. But our last game here is called Refresh. Restore your town as you run, jump, and dash through cozy locales while helping lovable townsfolk. Become immersed in a tight-knit community of animals and robots while becoming the town hero in this heartwarming solar punk adventure. This comes from Merge Conflict Studio and Negative Karma. It is a 3D platformer. Exploration, collectathon, everything you'd expect from like a classic style 3D platformer, Mario 64, Mario Sunshine kind of thing. An LGBTQ plus tag is here, 6th down the list. So not visible. You have to click into the list, but it is like quite high up there. And this is another game that gives me, like Frogun vibes. Maybe a little bit of Miska Tiny Tail, although the art style for this is a little more modern than like a classic style 3D platformer collectathon. Like it doesn't look like Miska Tiny Tail almost has that early 2000s GameCube style to it, whereas this looks I don't want to say more polished, because like that's how I would compare a Nintendo game like a Mario Sunshine to an Odyssey. I'd say an Odyssey is more polished. I think Miska Tiny Tail looks very polished, but this looks like and I don't want to say corporate either, but anyway, this game is already out.
It does feel indie. Like it feels indie, but like with a lot of care behind it. It doesn't have a lot of rough edges, if that makes any sense. Like,
yeah.
The textures are very minimal, and I'm pretty sure that's intentional. I love solar punk in general. This isn't my usual solar punk aesthetic. I actually kind of like the little bit more Victorian, like, I guess edgy solar punk. Lots of panes in the window kind of, greenhouse kind of thing versus the robot in a field, but I still seem like I love what I'm looking at. I did notice that like it said online that it was released in 2023 though, so.
Yeah, it's been out for a while. I'm not sure why it was featured in the showcase, but it was. Maybe
they just,
they're just trying to highlight it, but the only thing I would say about the art style is and again, some people might take this to be a negative. I think it's a positive, but it looks like a farming sim cozy game, like something you'd see in a Nintendo Direct where they're highlighting a bunch of farming sims. I don't think that there's too much farming sim to it, though.
It doesn't look like it.
No, yeah. But it's got that vibe, though. If you want like a cozy but 3D, like if you're looking for something that's not a farming sim, but something kind of in that ballpark of like the way it looks and feels, but you want like a 3D platformer, then this is for you.
It kind of reminds me of that Tanuki game that has like the anime cutscenes.
Tanuki game with anime cutscenes. I'm gonna look this up.
There's some like Tanuki town game where like you're a Tanuki on a BMX bike, and you're going around trying to build up your shrine. It seems like a lot of either money or love is behind it, probably both. Don't know / assume it is a queer game, but just your description of or games that are like Refresh. That's the main one that came to mind.
Is it called Tanuki Pond Summer?
That sounds right. Yeah, I get a lot of ads for it on Instagram because that's where my algorithm is, I guess.
That's fair. I mean, it looks adorable. It's got like these 2D drawings / animations that look like a lower budget Studio Ghibli animation. And that's not to insult the game at all. It's just like,
yeah, that's
Studio
a good
Ghibli is
description.
very hard to emulate. It's hard to emulate. So, but it doesn't have the queer tag. I'm not sure if the developers are queer in any way, but this is something we can definitely look into. And I'll link it down in the show notes because I think this game will appeal to a lot of queer gamers and gamers in general. Okay, so that's all our queer games from the Women-Led Games Showcase. Now, next week I'll be back. I will be talking about a couple more that I found that I missed last weekend. I want to make sure I kind of cover them all insofar as that I can, because I think they all deserve to be highlighted in their time in the spotlight. Plus, you never know. Like, there's been a bunch of games here where I'm like, this could be like my next big, most excited, anticipated game. And if I hadn't watched these showcases, I would never have known about it. So hopefully I can bring some attention to some of these games too. But yeah. So, Amy-Lynn, let's talk about what we've been playing, which is the Nintendo Switch 2.
Sounds good.
Do you want to start? Do you want to talk about your experiences? I want to hear about Welcome Tour.
So I will start, probably because my experience is, it seems like less exciting than yours. So for a lot of fear-based reasons, I sat at home and waited for my Switch 2 to be delivered, on the release date of the 5th. It did arrive, just before 4:00. It has been a really fun experience so far. As I've mentioned before, like a big part of me wanting the Switch 2 so early was, preparing for eventual Kirby Air Riders. I spent most of that morning, making sure I was aware of how to transfer from my Switch 1, and looking at like little demonstrations of that and so on. And, sort of being relieved that, things should go okay unless maybe there was a power outage. And even then, maybe it would have continued. So I actually haven't bought a Welcome Tour yet. I do intend to. I am in the market. You can still
change your mind. You still have time.
I am in the market for a new TV. And although this is part of like the horrible, most expensive pay to win, scheme that Nintendo has ever pulled of, I'm waiting to play the game / buy it because there are games that you need a 4K TV in order to appreciate. And my TV is a 37-inch from, I think, 2006 or something. So it is not really great in a lot of ways. I'm also getting a new TV so I can squint less. Can I
just say I'm amazed that you have a TV that lasted almost 20 years?
I mean, maybe it's not that old. Maybe it's 2012. Cause it's definitely like, it's not super thick. I don't remember the model number, but, I got it, I think, shortly before I left for Costa Rica, and then put it in storage. So that would have been 2012.
Still impressive, but anyway.
Yeah. So the main thing I've been playing is Deltarune, probably surprising no one. By no one, I mean you and any regular listeners, that we may have. And I have been playing, Mario Kart World a little bit as well. I haven't gone through all of the cups yet, although I'm getting close to the end. I think I only have 2 left. But Mario Kart World is a Mario Kart game. I have been playing exclusively as Toadette so far for some reason.
Me too. Me too.
And it's cute. It's fun. It plays really nice. Like there are moments that make it feel almost like I wish like Sonic running gameplay felt like this, in certain moments, like with the grinding and the wall jumping and there's a super rare thing you can do where you can actually bounce off another character, which is really fun. I've been really loving Deltarune so far. I'm about, I think, an hour or 2 into chapter 4 at this point. But I'm excited for eventually getting Welcome Tour in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, Mario Kart. I just want to go back to Mario Kart a little bit because it's one of the most polished Mario Kart games ever. The driving feels so good. But my review of it is it's one of the Mario Kart games of all time. It's Mario Kart. It's exactly what you'd expect from a racing stuff. But I think the thing that I thought I wouldn't enjoy that much is Knockout Tour, and I love it. I think Knockout Tour has breathed new life into this game.
Oh, cool.
Series for me. I really enjoy playing Knockout Tour with friends or just alone. It's just I find driving games like racing games really relaxing, and this Knockout Tour is very relaxing to me. But the open world is such a fucking afterthought. It's literally not even like, I was talking about this last week. It's not even in the menu. It's
Where do you find it? Because I was wondering about that because I just figured, oh, maybe it unlocks after I beat all the cups.
So you had it from the beginning, but they made it look like a disclaimer on the main menu where they say press the plus button to enter free roam mode. And I won't spoil what it does because it's kind of cool the way it enters free roam mode.
Okay.
But it's as soon as you boot up the game after you press L and R to get from the like splash screen into the main menu where you can select like 1 player or 2 player or like, customization and stuff like that. Just like in the bottom, either right or left hand corner, it says like press this button to enter free roam. And the fact that you didn't know that or see that is, damning to me. Not about you, but about the way Nintendo fucking included this fucking mode as a fucking afterthought.
Yeah, I honestly, like, as of the last time I played it, which I guess was either yesterday or the day before, would have been the day before, I just like, oh, I still don't see, the free roam on the main menu. I still have a few cups to go. I'm guessing they don't want to spoil what the tracks are like, so I need to beat all the tracks once before I get to it. But yeah, that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, no, it was there from the moment I booted up the game. Now, the only thing I can think of is like, maybe the resolution is causing an issue with the way it's presenting that information on the screen. But again, I still think, like, regardless whether or not it is, the fact that that could even possibly happen, if that is even possible, is just the fact that, like, it, in the list of things, you've got your, like, battle mode, you've got your, like, 1 player, 2 player, like, you've got all these, like, list of options with, like, this beautifully designed menu. The same way all Mario Kart menus are designed. It looks exactly like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the menu. And so, why didn't you just add free roam as, like, underneath the multiplayer section? Not like as part of it, but like in your list of options, you've got single player, you've got multiplayer, you've got something else, and then you could have just like put free roam in one of those orange little boxes.
Yeah, it could have even been a different shape or something.
Yeah, like what the what? This is Nintendo doing the thing again, where they're like, they're monkey's paw. They're like, here is the best Mario Kart game we've ever made. It has open world. Good luck finding it. And I think back to the developers saying, like, we put everything into the game we wanted to put in. And it's like, did you, though? Because it feels...
I guess they didn't want to put Diddy Kong in.
Yeah, at one point I thought I saw Diddy Kong, and I think it was actually a different character. I was like, oh, Diddy Kong is in this. And I was like, wait, that's not Diddy Kong. That's Wario in a different costume.
The one thing, so like there's a lot about this game that I like, which I've already mentioned, but like one of the things that I know I've seen a little bit of buzz around online is that Mario Kart finally has Mario and spin-off music, which, like, aside from Mario Kart 8's guest characters tracks, it has really kind of avoided. But already in this game, I've heard, remixes from Mario 2, which surprised me. Like really cool remixes. And I've heard online when I was watching footage, like there's Wario Land 1 music. I've heard definitely like Donkey Kong. There's the one stage with Jump Up Superstar, like a instrumental version of it. There are still like Mario Kart exclusive songs. Like it's not like they've replaced the Mario Kart music with Mario music, but I really love the balance so far when it comes to the music, and it's been a fun element to it.
Yeah, the music is fantastic, and I like how when you're in a race, the music just, like, especially a knockout tour where it's like a really long race, the music just changes. It's just like the song ends and it plays another one. Like
that's
you've
really
listened
cool.
to radio. I
haven't played it yet, so that's I'll look forward to that.
If I'd had time, I was actually going to ask you to play some multiplayer with me so we could talk about it on the podcast. I still want to do that with you, but
I'm sure it'll happen.
It will, for sure. It will. This game is, we're going to be playing this game for the next decade, right? So there'll be lots of time for Mario Kart, but my big gripe with it is, like, the music is so good. And when you're in free roam mode, it's the same thing. Like, the music is just playing. At one point, I heard the Observatory theme from, like, a jazzy version of the Observatory theme from Mario Galaxy 1.
That's cool.
And yeah, and it was just like, every time there was a new song, I was like, I recognize this, but it's so different. And it's so good. Like, you can tell a real band is playing a lot of this music. They put so much money and time and effort and love into this music. And what free roam desperately needs, and I've seen people talk about this, and that we almost thought it, I know some people suspected it might be a mode you unlock in the game, and maybe it is, and I just haven't played enough, but that there should be a radio where you can select the songs while you're driving.
Oh, that would be amazing.
When you put 200 songs in the game, and people have their favorites, like even Smash Bros had 800 songs, and they gave us like an iPod mode in it. Why can't we do this in Mario Kart? You're telling me you didn't think of this? You put all this money and time and energy into 200 brand new songs. And not brand new in terms of like their new melodies, but like, you know, like new recordings, new versions of these songs. And we can't cycle through them and hear all of them? You specifically designed the open world to have different timings so people would see the beautiful sunsets and stuff like that. But you're telling me you don't want people to be able to like hear all the music?
It's sad.
Monkey's Paw, Nintendo again. So
that's where Diddy Kong went.
Oh my gosh. This has got some double layers to that there. So you've been playing Deltarune. I'm curious. I've been wanting to ask. I know we're going to do kind of a fuller episode on this at some point down the road. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But I have two questions. First off, there's probably going to be 3 more chapters after 4, right?
It looks like it, according to the menu.
Because I was going to pick up this game and play it. And then I was like, no, I don't want to wait years. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I don't want to wait a long time for all 7 chapters. Plus, I know this is a game that if I like it, I'm going to want a physical edition. And the fact that it's got a little more of a cohesive story than Undertale is, I think, something I'm going to like more about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't want to wait between chapters. So I think I was going to pick this up. I'm not going to, but I'm curious, how long is a chapter to play through? Because I would assume at this point you would have played through all 4 chapters like 12 times.
So, I've already played chapter 1 and 2. I didn't really want to play through them again. At least at this point, I was so excited, for chapter 3 and 4. Chapter 3 was about, it took me, I think, about 3.5 hours, just because I think I'm just over 5 now, or just approaching 6, and I'm an hour and a bit into chapter 4. So it's about the same, or chapter 3 was about the same length as chapter 1, I believe. It felt a little bit shorter than 2, but I think a lot of that is, and I'm not going to spoil things at this point, the format of chapter 3 is different than chapter 1 and 2, and it seems like chapter 4 so far is also quite different. I'm curious where it's going to go and how long it might be, but it is really compelling. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm already anticipating disappointment of the next cliffhanger, because there's been a lot of stuff. Like, I will say this, that there was enough going on in chapter 3 in like the sort of passive dialogue that I was worried that I accidentally booted up chapter 4. But it's intentionally like, you know, cryptic and enticing as far as little plot beats. But I'm like, oh, did I miss this? But no, it was very intentionally led breadcrumbs, which was quite good. But chapter 3, definitely like such a Toby Fox experience. Like basically right when I'll say like the game proper, or the chapter proper begins, it's like, yep, this is a Toby Fox game, all right. It's unexpected in a way that I probably should have expected. And then it completely subverts those expectations afterwards. It's a fun time. There's been so many creative things with chapter 4 so far. I've been having a great time.
I'm so glad that it's like, you know, it didn't disappoint, because I know it's been a long wait, right? It's been like, I want to say over 5 years since chapter 2, right?
Oh gosh. Yeah, close to it at least, which is aging. But yeah, it definitely has been a while. So it is nice to get 2 at once. I just worry that it's going to be a long time and then 2 at once again. Although if that means chapter 7 is super long, great.
Fair, yeah. Well, I think when we were talking about it in previous episodes, that Chapter 5 was at least in development at some stage of development while they were working on chapters 3 and 4. Because I think at one point there was something we read that maybe 3, 4, 5 were coming this year at different stages of the year, at different points in the year. And then, they dropped the bomb on us that, 3 and 4 were coming together, and now it's a paid package. And now that it is a paid package, I think there is probably more, I would hope there's more of a sense of urgency, not to put pressure on the devs, but that they've got to finish the game that people have now paid for, right?
I think that's true, and I think that Toby Fox has, from all of the developer diaries, which is, weird, quirky emails for the most part, from everything I can tell from those, he's been doing a lot better with delegating while still maintaining a clear creative control. It doesn't feel like the game has been taken away from him at all. It is still very much Deltarune in sort of the ancestral spirit of Undertale, but a very much evolution of it. It feels like a significant sequel to Undertale, almost I'm not sure if I want to go all the way and say it's a Mario 64 to Mario World situation, because it's not that drastic. It's still 2D, but it's the same while being different, which is really cool. But yeah, I'm hopeful that delegation can continue and increase the workflow and still get really cool creative ideas out there.
Well, we're coming up on time on the podcast, and I did say that I would talk about the Nintendo Switch launch party event thing that I kind of went to, but didn't really get to go to. So they had a midnight launch at EB Games for the Nintendo Switch 2, and I pre-ordered it. So when I pre-ordered it, I was 7th in line. I got there 5 hours before the store opened. It was early in the morning. And so I figured, okay, I was 7th in line. I got my pre-order in, no problem. So I'll show up 5 hours before. I'll just go home from work. I'll drop my stuff off, have a quick bite to eat, and then I'm going to go wait in line. And so I got there at 7 p.m. for the midnight launch. And I was already, the line was already, I was at the point where the line was going around the block. I was literally,
oh my gosh,
right at the street corner. And I figured out that okay, if I'd come straight from work and not gone home to get a quick bite to eat, I would have been 4 more people ahead of me. Cause I was making friends and chatting up people around me. Some people were very intimidated by a woman. Some people were intimidated by a trans woman, but other people were super friendly and affirming, actually. People were great. But, so when I went to the Tears of the Kingdom launch party, I was 38th in line or something like that. I was less than 40 people in. And so I got to go in the store about an hour before it properly opened to start selling the game. And there was quizzes and stuff, and Nintendo reps were there. They were there back then. They were there this time. And so, from Nintendo of Canada. And so they were giving out free goodies and stuff. And so, just as the line finally, we got basically at the door. I was basically at the door at this point, when for the people they chose to let in, that they could fit in the store safely. And so, and as soon as they basically slammed the door in the people in front of me's faces. And then it started raining. It hadn't rained all night. It was supposed to rain all night, and that's when it started raining. And then finally we were just waiting with bated breath. So I didn't get any of the free goodies. They gave us a couple things outside, and then Tim Hortons also came by and gave us free samples of drinks and stuff. Actually, cool. I call them samples, but they were full-size drinks that they would have sold for $200 in the store, right? So, anyway, so at one point though, because I had brought cash, because I had a little birthday money saved up from last year, actually, that I was I'm going to use this to pick up Cyberpunk when I get there, because I'd already paid for my console. So when I went in, well, I didn't go in. At some point, a guy came out and said, "Is anyone paying cash?" And so the person in front of me was "Yeah, I'm paying cash for the whole console." And they were starting to walk away, and I just kind of called out. I was "Hey, I'm paying cash for a game. Can I come in too?" And he's just "Yeah, come in." So I followed him in. We skipped the entire line and went right up to the cash register, and we started waiting. And then within 5 minutes, we were waiting there, and they were "Oh, we fixed our problem. So we probably shouldn't have brought you in here." And you're skipping the line. And they're but because both EB Games new owners were there, and I think Nintendo's Canadian executives were there, because there were a bunch of dudes in suits, and they were very pleasant to be around. They were very polite and kind and helpful. I dropped something, and they this guy from Nintendo, I think he picked it up and handed it to me.
Cool.
But they were because we already brought you up, we're going to check you out. well, we won't send you to the cash-only cache because now that's fixed. So I just like went up, and then as soon as I got to the counter, they're like, we don't have Cyberpunk. We didn't get it. I was like, what? This is the game that everyone wants that isn't Mario Kart. You know that, right? But anyway, so I ended up pre-ordering to make it worth my while, and I was picking up my Switch as well, of course. So picked up my Switch. I pre-ordered Donkey Kong Bonanza, which I paid off. And yeah, I ended up, if I had waited, I would have been waiting till I would have gotten home at like 3 or 4 in the morning. But I got to get home before 1. So thankfully, my bedtime, which is like, I went to bed at 3 a.m. that morning. But I got my Switch entirely set up and I got to play a tiny bit of Mario Kart before going to bed. Whereas if I had picked up my Switch and waited in that line, I would have like gotten home at 3 and not even gotten to set up my Switch. So it was at least ready for me the next day to go play Mario Kart, which was pretty much the only time I really got to sink my teeth into the Nintendo Switch. I did end up picking Cyberpunk up the next day from a Best Buy Express, which is what used to be the Source, which is what used to be Radio Shack. They had 2 copies. I reserved one and I went and picked it up after a short day at work, which I still haven't been able to crack open because I've just been so busy with the podcast. But I'm finally going to play Cyberpunk. It is my summer game that I'm going to play up until hopefully, if I haven't beat it then I'll play it after, but Donkey Kong Bonanza. So, yeah.
It definitely sounds like, I'm glad you avoided sort of the worst of it. Horrible, like it reads like a scene from a TV show of the door closing and then it's starting to rain. Like that was sad to listen to, but I'm glad it worked out.
To Nintendo's credit, they gave us ponchos. They weren't Nintendo branded, but they were red, like Nintendo red.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah. I had an umbrella, so I was like fine. And then I was in the rain for too long. But yeah, I feel bad for everyone else who was out there that was just kind of waiting. And, yeah, if I had showed up any later, I wouldn't have been with the person, standing next to the person who was called into the store, and I would have been waiting so much longer. So it worked out in a weird, silly, wonderful way that I still got my Switch at a decent time. And actually, to be honest, even if I'd shown up like a few hours earlier, I still wouldn't have been, I would have been in the store and not paying, like maybe not heard they were getting people who were paying cash or whatever, or skipping the line. So
could you tell what was going on in the store as far as like events go?
Well, what they did for Tears of the Kingdom and what they definitely did this time is they had like a Nintendo themed banner that you could take a picture with. They would take one on your phone, but I think they would also take one with a professional photographer for like marketing reasons. Because as soon as you stepped in the store, it said like you waive your right to being photographed, to consent to be like, this is your consent to be photographed. But, when they did it before, they looped people around the store in a circle. And they did like quizzes. They had screens going, playing Nintendo stuff. You know, there was like everyone in the store got like free more goodies on top of the ones we got outside. I don't know if they did any of that this time because they didn't actually bring people in the store till like 11:55, whereas last time they brought us in at 11 p.m. and we stood in there for an hour and played games and stuff. And got goodies. Whereas this time they brought people in like maybe 5-10 minutes before. They took pictures. And as far as I can tell, they didn't actually really start selling it till maybe 5-10 minutes after the store actually, like after midnight. So it took a little while. It was maybe a little more disorganized this time, but busier too, because there were more people here for the Switch 2 than Tears of the Kingdom.
It makes sense. The console launch is a big thing.
Yeah. But that is all the time we have. Amy-Lynn, where can people find you?
If you search Amethyst Lilac, with more Ys than you're expecting, the easiest thing is to find the True Avatar's social media, and if I'm not tagged, I am probably at least a follower. I
think you've been tagged before, but you have
it depends on the social media, yeah.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me this week.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, True Avatars, for joining me for another episode of your Queer Video Game Podcast. If you've made it this far into the episode, I really appreciate you taking the time to support queer-made content. If you want to support the show, it would be really great if you could leave a rating, review, or comment on your preferred podcast platform. I welcome you to check out the website, trueavatarspodcast.com, all one word. That's trueavatarspodcast.com. You can also find the show on Blue Sky, Threads, and YouTube under the handle @TrueAvatars, all one word, and on Instagram under True Avatars. Importantly, if you or anyone you know is queer and involved with video games in some way, please don't be shy. I would love to hear from more queer voices in video games. Your voice is unique and valid and worth sharing with the world. And if you don't want to be on the show or know anyone is interested, but you know about a cool queer video game or a games industry story that's queer related, please let me know. The show's official email is trueavatars.podcast@gmail.com. That's trueavatars.podcast@gmail.com. You can also feel free to reach out via the website or the aforementioned social media pages. Things are tough out there and queer people need to stick together when we can. Bye, True Avatars. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you all again next week. Take care and stay safe.